Well, recently we saw a lot of exciting games in the candidates, and we got a new World Championship challenger. So today I wanted to show a game that could foreshadow the upcoming match, and it's the game that was played between Gukesh and Ding from last year's Tata Steel.
Yes, I've seen it. A lot of people pull that up because it's a very nice example. I haven't looked at the game, so I'm curious what it is about. We're playing from the perspective of Ding Liren, right?
Yeah, we'll be playing from Black,
Okay.
and they've actually played twice in the classical chess. One of them was in 2023 Tata Steel, and the other one was 2024 Tata Steel. So I don't know which one of the games you've seen yet,
Hmm.
but this one will be from last year.
Okay, I'm curious. So yes, Gukesh. By the way, when we were talking about the candidates, about the tactics, a great video. If you haven't watched it yet, check out please the ChessBase tactics from Svitlana Smart Moves, the best tactics of the candidates. And I predicted Prag or Gukesh will win.
So you actually got it.
I feel great. Well, the chances were quite high with 1 out of 4 basically when I'm picking two players. Anyway, let's go. So it is Gukesh versus Sting, and it's D4.
Yes.
See
So
this
in this
opening.
game, they went for a Queen's Indian
Hmm.
with E6 and B6. In their other game, the one that was played in 2024, they played an Italian game. So very different from this one. And I'm excited to see actually what preparation they will have for their match. Will they stick to one thing or will they do a variety like they did in so far in their two games?
Hmm.
But this one was a Queen's Indian, and it's a um, now Black plays bishop to a6, which looks a bit strange, but it's actually a common way to develop this bishop in these lines. You just attack the pawn instead, and the bishop can come back anytime if it wants to. So that forces white to defend the pawn, for example, with b3.
Hmm.
Now Ding gives a check, and after bishop
Aggressive.
to d2, he plays bishop to e7, which is an interesting retreat. So, for those who don't play these types of setups, this is usually done to force a certain piece to a place that it doesn't want to go. So whether that is the knight going to d2 or the bishop going to d2. And usually that just ruins the coordination of the pieces a little bit, while Black lost a move technically,
Hmm.
but instead they put this piece onto a worse square than it was before on c1 and had the chances to go to uh, b2, for example, and the knight to c3 like they wanted to go. So that's just an idea to know. It works in a lot of these Nimzo or Queen's Indian lines. And so far they are still following the main line theory as both white and black. I
So
don't know,
this
are you
is this
familiar
is
with these?
I'm not, and of course the first thing is like wow, there's this open file, this open diagonal with the bishop, and they're
Yeah.
just like calmly making their castling moves. I mean, I'm aware that nothing can really happen if you pull the knight out to, let's say, e5 or g5 or
Right.
something, but it's still funny, always funny to watch.
Yeah, I agree that this diagonal looks funny. But as you said, right now the knight doesn't have any dangerous retreats where it can go and attack the rook. And if that rook is ever attacked, then black is just going to play either d5 or c6 and cover it up.
Something,
Which, yeah,
some opening like this always looks to me like a little bit of flexing. It's
yeah,
like
you can't do
showing
it.
off, like, I know this line. I have to worry about nothing.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So in these positions, as white, you try to play in the center. Maybe you bring the knight to c3, you play rook c1, rook e1, things like that.
Mhm.
And as black, you definitely want to also control the center a little bit more. For example, with moves like d5. Also, c5 can happen, or c6 first to make it solid and then develop. And then maybe once the rook gets there, then you can try to prepare c5.
Mhm.
Those are the typical plans. These positions can be very solid until it opens up. So at first, it's very calm for the first, let's say, 20 moves.
Mhm. Which one of those? Have you played both of those openings before? Probably.
I haven't played this exactly with the bishop a6. I've played a little bit, but
Mhm.
it hasn't been my main thing.
Okay.
But yeah.
So d5 is the opening move.
Yeah, d5 is the right move. You just close that diagonal just in case.
Yeah.
And now Gukesh plays something a little bit less typical. He plays knight to c3, although more common is to capture and then knight to c3. And then maybe black tries to put the rook there, white puts the knight onto good square
Mhm.
e5, and the game goes on something like this. So that's usually what white chooses to go for in these positions, and it looks pretty good either way. He plays knight c3 instead, c6, so everything is solid. Now white finally takes, and all captures here are very different, but they're roughly equivalent. There isn't a huge difference what black captures with, whether it's knight or the two of the pawns. He chooses the e pawn, which is the more usual in these structures. So you open the e file, you put the rook there next. And white did this knight repositioning from f3 to g3. I guess it's just to prevent it to have an extra attack onto c5, but it was a pretty interesting knight maneuver, maybe just opening up the bishop or waiting what black is going to do.
It
So,
looks
what plan do
very,
you think
very,
you would go
yeah.
ahead?
Sorry. I just didn't want to interrupt you. I'm thinking about the plan in a moment, but it's like so funny to see all those very technical, very like probably positional or like they know exactly how to play this, and for me, it's just all like very new territory. I don't know how you feel at home for this, but it's funny to look at this while I play a very different style. So
You
what are
know, I
yeah
think most of them know just like the general plans, and let's say they've seen so many games or they've studied so many engine lines that they have, let's say, five plans at their
yeah
disposal, and then they judge like which one do we go for here exactly. But yes, I agree that it's
interesting.
amazing.
Yeah, you're right. That makes a lot of sense. So the plans for white and black you
Black.
wanted to ask me, right? Or yeah, okay,
Yeah.
black. So well, I would put my rook to c8. I just don't want to
Yeah.
have it on this diagonal. Then I would push on c5, maybe open up a bit more in the center. That's
Yeah.
my idea.
Yes, that's the right that's a good approach.
Mhm.
He played something different in the game, but if we take a look at Rook C8, to me this looks really good. So if White just continues regular development, then you can already strike with C5, and if they take, let's say they take this pawn, then we're gonna take this other pawn. So everything works out tactically.
Mhm.
So I think this is a good plan, but apparently White has a really weird move, Bishop H3 here,
Huh.
according to the computer, and that makes things unpleasant for that
Oh,
rook and
indeed. Damn.
doesn't let you play all of this comfortably with, let's say, knight to e5 next.
My
But I don't think it's not like a big deal, but just
Yeah, but of course, my plan to get this rook out of this diagonal from the bishop really fails with bishop h3. So,
yeah,
something I
yeah.
just didn't think about for a second. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no, to me it also seemed like a weird move, but
hmm.
that's why apparently it's a good plan to once again make a threat on that rook. Instead in the game, I thought he also made a really interesting choice. He played knight to f8, maybe inspired by White's maneuver. So this knight also remaneuvers itself all the way to e6 for now, and then the rook will come to can come to c8 eventually. But so far he keeps it there, makes forces that trade of the bishops, of the
Mhm.
bishop for the knight. And I really like the next move by Ding. I won't make you guess it, but he plays knight to c5 here. I think it's a pretty cool move. It plays on that pin
He's such a
on the
flexer.
long. Yes, yes. I mean, you could also play c5, which is
Duh,
the regular
duh.
plan. But then you start having an issue with the a8 rook. So even though the
Oops.
position is apparently equal here,
Wow.
but you just don't want to lose that exchange if you don't have to. So I like this knight c5 move. Basically, if
Okay,
white
I
ever
see.
takes, he's going to take on c3, which actually does happen in the game. So he takes with a pawn. If he takes with a knight, then there's an issue with this rook.
Mhm.
So many bishop rook attacks in this game.
Indeed.
So this weird trade happens, after which black basically gets out of the opening comfortably with the bishop pair against the bishop and knight. But still, there's a lot left to play. So now, if white takes on d4, Black is going to take back, and it's not possible to take the pawn on c6. The queen can take because of the knight hanging, and then this bishop cannot take because of rook c8. And it turns out that this pin is really strong, and black is going to just win this bishop in the next few moves, let's
That looks
say
good.
with rook e6. So still a lot of calculation existed for both of them here as to why maybe white shouldn't go after this pawn. So instead, Gukesh plays with a rook to d1. And soon we'll get to a more tactical portion of the game.
Okay.
So this capture happened, bishop d4, knight to f4. So still bishop c6 was possible now, because after rook c8, it's the same position, but lost a tempo for black. It was possible here, but maybe he was afraid of that rook c8 idea once again. So he plays knight to f4 instead. And the next move by black was really, really courageous. I know that people don't see Ding as like an attacking player or anything, but I think when it comes down to calculation and very concrete lines, he actually does, sit down and calculate all of them really, really well. So I think it would be natural to play something like c5 just to protect that bishop and all of that, but he notices something strange about this knight. The fact that, well, it can't really go back here. It doesn't want to go back
I
here.
see that too. Immediately I feel a plan.
Yeah, what is it?
So it has to be g5, right?
Yes, it is g5.
For
And
several
that gives
reasons.
the knight a really difficult choice. You don't want it to go back to h3 and to be passive for the rest of the game. You don't want to go back to these two. So it goes to h5. It looks super dangerous to open this up around the king, but this knight also doesn't have that many squares. So queen to h6 next, attacking the knight. Has to get defended like this. He plays c5 just to protect everything. And now g4. Might look like a weird move, but it has a very clear plan actually to leave space for the knight. And to, if the knight gets to f5, that's a really amazing square. So at this point, how can we continue for black?
Yeah,
It's a very important moment for black to take over the initiative.
So if I would have been black and I would have found this move g5, which I probably would have even played, because for me, it's, as you all know, it's very easy to play g5, h5, g4, the crazy stuff.
Yes, risky.
So now I would be in shock that white has so many resources, because I already thought like, hey, well, this is quite crushing. f2, then the rook is going to e2. This is game over, but no, not even close. So how to get out of this struggle? I see it looks tactical a little. There are some things which are aligned. There are some things which can give check. Also, black has to be aware too, right? I mean, there's also some threats here. And as you already pointed out, if the knight moves to f5 in 2 moves, I think white has a big advantage. So how can we stop that? How can we stop the knight going to g3 is probably my very first concern. Now, I see another absolutely bonkers idea, which I don't think it ever happened like this. But does it even make sense, or is it like a bit too crazy? For you at home, of course, as you know the show. Underneath the YouTube video is an article with the whole game. So if you want to analyze for yourself, which I always recommend, go for it now. So I think I cannot find it in this couple of seconds I have left. I thought about f5, but I think that's too crazy. It's just too crazy. I mean,
your intuition is actually right. So if anybody did find f5, this is the right move.
oh my
There's also one more
goodness.
move that is surprisingly good. It is bishop to c8.
That was the other idea I had. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
protecting that square. But f5 is better. And
Wow.
then after knight here, let's say, you can play something like queen to h3
Oh.
and, prevent that knight from going that way, and then also attack this pawn. But still, I would say that f5 is the most concrete and actually the best line, but it
My
does require
goodness.
some calculations. So I understand you were probably scared
Yeah.
or you didn't want to calculate all of these captures.
Yeah. But at the moment, today I'm in a good chess mood. I had the show
Yeah,
with Elisabeth earlier and I got all the right moves for some reason. So I
that's
don't know,
good.
some
And you
switch.
see your intuition with f5 was right. This one, the lines here are kind of intuitive. So basically, with f5, you don't just like compromise the position of that knight. You also try to open up the f file, which we understand will be it's very important
Yeah.
for white to actually protect these. So let's say queen f5, bishop to c8,
Oh, I
and
thought
then rook to f8.
okay, this
So
way around.
black doesn't even get the pawn back or anything, but you just get pressure onto this bishop that is not going to be able to move because of that pawn, and that just like ruins white's coordination and makes it really hard for them to defend. So they can try to have counterplay, but the king is pretty safe on the dark squares.
Mhm.
And it seems, and yeah, there's not like a concrete win
Wow.
for black yet, but it's just that pressure on the f file. You just, let's say you play rook d7 and you double up um, rook f7, and that's kind of the plan. And it just makes white's life really hard and really makes it easy for them to make a mistake. And black would
Cute.
already be slightly better. So with queen f5, that's what I think the hardest part about f5 is. And if g takes f5, then there is a clear tactical nuance. It's just g4.
That was my
So
initial idea.
either
Yeah.
the knight hangs or you have to take back with the bishop. And now there's this really, really cool move. I mean, I would initially just look at queen g5, which is not bad. It's still very good. And rook e2, I would think that this is the most
That
evident move.
looks quite
Well,
convincing, yeah.
it does look really convincing, but white has this, and apparently it's not as convincing as we would like it to be, but I would still say that it's pretty good for black. But according to the engine, the best move is queen to c6 with the idea of just simply bishop b7. And white can never play f3 to protect all of that because of this bishop. And in reality, you just cannot really protect against that
Oh.
really well. It's something I
Oh.
think queen
That's
g5 is
brutal.
something you look at and then you don't look at other things.
No.
But queen to c6 is a nice idea.
Wow.
So
That's
that's
crushing.
that is a crushing move. In the actual game, he played knight to g3
Huh.
and tried to keep that pawn and put the knight onto f5, which is what white's plan all along. So he does put the knight there, and then ignores that pawn on g4 because he would rather have the bishop on this diagonal to maybe have some threats on the king as well. Ding defends that extra pawn, but also defends the h7 pawn indirectly with his move h5.
Safest king ever.
Yes. But I mean, surprisingly, there's
Yeah.
nothing yet.
Yeah, because the bishop is just too strong on d4.
Yeah, this is protected so
Yeah.
far. But yes, it's very much unsafe on both ends for both of the kings. He plays b4, so kind of shifts the game a bit more to that side of the board because white kind of ran out of improving moves on that side. He plays king f8. I think it's a pretty amazing move.
That's
But
funny.
he just tries to get out of all of these checks.
Mhm.
And he figured that it was safer on f8 than it was on h8.
Yeah, that
I don't know
is,
which one is actually safer, but I thought it was funny to put the king on f8 with the idea of making it safer. He goes there, and then h4. So, black didn't give up on their attacking ideas just yet with this h4 move.
the plan is, well, there's two plans probably, either g3 or h3, but I think g3 is more straightforward.
That is right. G3 is one of the plans, and I was going to ask you soon about the tactics here that would work. Now I'll show you the first move of his combination, and then you can find what the idea was
Okay, let's see.
for the rest of it. So he plays. So this is Ding Liren already in his calculating mode. He plays rook takes e4. So
I
eliminating
see it, I
that
think.
bishop, that was really strong. And soon after the queen takes, you can try to find what his idea was.
So I think I found it, but it's interesting because, of course, it's not like a winning move. It's like a material imbalance, as you might call it. Also, as we
Yeah.
often quoted from one of your famous Fritz trainers, Svitlana,
Yeah.
about the material imbalances, this might happen. So I think it must be bishop d3, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
so bishop d3 is exactly what he played in the game. That's what he wanted. And also g3, the move that you mentioned earlier. So if anybody looked at
Ah,
g3, that would
that would
also be
work too.
right.
Okay.
So yeah, both of them work. G3 is really good because of
Hmm.
that bishop there, and there isn't really a good way for white to defend an f2 without
Nice.
giving material. For example, if they take with the knight, then bishop f2, and now you can either take the rook or you can take the knight. Both of them work. Both of them are a bit complicated, but both taking here, taking the knight is even better, and taking the rook lead to a pretty good position for black.
Hmm.
Still a lot to be careful about, because this king is also not completely safe. But if he calculated these lines all the way until the end, that would be a win for black. Still, bishop d3 is what he chose in the game, which might be a little bit more straightforward to calculate and a little bit less risky. So now, white, of course, queen is attacked and also the knight is indirectly attacked. So he tries to move away the queen to e6 in this case. If he moves it away somewhere else like this, then of course the knight is going to get taken. And
So
if queen takes, yeah,
I need to ask, what about
yeah,
queen e7 check, though?
yeah, queen to e7 check makes a lot of sense. So of course we're going to take it back. And you wanted to take with the knight?
Yeah. I mean, otherwise the
Yeah.
knight is falling, right? It has to
Well, yeah, yeah.
happen.
If you take with the rook,
Yeah.
then the bishop is gonna take. So I assume that in this case, these two bishops are really, really strong. So I don't know what happens. What does white do if g3 once again,
That,
combining those two
yeah,
ideas?
it's too strong, the spawn, which you cannot get rid of, and it will take on f2, and that is that is the game. So this is also not working. So easy.
Yeah, yeah. So either what black wins back, let's say a rook. Well, actually, why would you take with the bishop if you can take with a pawn?
Exactly.
So either we win this rook somewhere, or we can always win back the exchange with promoting. But maybe there's something even better. Maybe we keep that pawn there and try to promote it in a better
Mm,
way. So yeah, I think after g3, this is going to be a winning endgame for black. And plus, these two bishops are just so, so strong
yeah.
on, yeah, that's the power of the bishop pair sometimes. So instead, he goes queen there. Oh, yeah, wait, I didn't show what happens if queen there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it was my
Yes, I'm
interruption.
sure if you find bishop to d3, I assume you know the idea of the discovered
Yeah.
check and then winning the queen. So that also doesn't work. But in the actual game, we had quite a similar ending. So he does take with the rook right now, and then bishop to f5
Well, that's
and
nice.
rook to b6. So in the game, he decided to go like, okay, if I'm gonna lose to g3, I might as well take some pawns on the other side and maybe create the two passers.
Hmm.
But that doesn't work because after g3, that is just too strong. After bishop to h3. So that was his final move, and he doesn't immediately take, but he puts the bishop here so that after he takes, he promotes like this with just, winning the rook and
Oh, okay.
having two extra bishops in the endgame with a winning, yeah, with a winning ending. So that was the game. I know we rushed through it a little bit, but I think there were some moments here that were a good calculation practice and a good, um, yeah, good positional, showed good positional understanding. So what do you
Yes.
think their score is in classical? That was something I was curious about. Between these two players, they haven't played a lot,
Yeah.
uh, given that Gukesh is very young and Ding doesn't play a lot of classical chess anymore. So what do you think their score is in classical? Do you think Gukesh has one more, Ding has one more, or is it even?
Well, uh, like, I don't know how old Ding is, to be honest, but he must be in his 30s, I think.
Maybe early
20,
30s.
20s, maybe even. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, according to that, the Ding has to have a better score than Gukesh, right?
Okay.
Like
Your guess
even
is right. So they've
okay.
played 2 classical games so far,
Yeah.
and Ding has won both of them.
Oh.
So they've only played in
Well,
these
yeah,
these two tennis games.
so the one from 2024 and the one from 2025, three, I mean, the two
Yeah,
Tata. And Ding won
yes,
both.
yes.
Uh, oh, well, but that wasn't that long ago. So I thought maybe they had played when Gukesh was 13, 14 and he had like 2,300 or something like this. Oh, that's
No, it's
interesting.
only these two. Only these two. They were,
So,
they were both professional players then. But 2 games is not a huge sample
mm,
size, but still, it's interesting to see that. Maybe there's like something about their styles that isn't compatible for Gukesh, or maybe Gukesh has just got improved so much in the last few times and has fixed these mistakes that is going to be really different this time. So, who will you be rooting for in the match?
well, obviously, Gukesh is now the clear favorite, of course, of what happened with Ding in the first couple of tournaments he played beginning of this year and all of this. So um, I think Gukesh will take the lead and the win.
Yeah. I mean, it's really exciting to see what will happen
Yeah,
in the match, and I'm glad that we have a very new and fresh World Championship match that I'm sure we will all enjoy, whether it's this year or next year when it's going to happen. But that was a little bit of a preview of how their previous games
hmm
have unfolded, and it's a very, nice win for Ding, which maybe not a lot of people expect,
true.
but we got to see this one with the black pieces.
Thank you so much, Svitlana. Thank you, everybody, for watching. As always, we see each other soon enough. Bye bye.